tutti e bentornati al mio canale. My name is Kaya and I'm an Australian who lived in Italy for a year, and I wanted to make a video today about Italian etiquette that I guess you really need to know, or that I found to be quite important to understand as the year went on in Italy for me personally. And I wanted to make this video because I know that the Italian university semester starts in September, I believe. So a lot of people I know that have been messaging me on Instagram that they found these videos and they found them to be really helpful because they're going to study in Milan this September. Given that everything works out and everything, you know, is fine with the situation in the world right now, I really hope that you guys who are going to Italy have the same experience that I did, because it was definitely an amazing one. I'm going to talk about these, I guess, just random things. They're not even in the same category, but they are things that I noticed when I was in Italy that are important to know in, like, whether it's social situations, things that you shouldn't really bring up or things that you shouldn't talk about. In terms of punctuality, like things that maybe we would consider rude coming from Australia, but in Italian culture they're not, it's just part of their culture. But without further ado, I'm just gonna get straight into this video because I do the longest intros in the world. So without further ado, I'm gonna get into the first thing. I've got them written down on my laptop here, so if I'm looking down, you know why. So the first thing is that punctuality in Italian culture doesn't mean that you are, you know, on the dot, right on time, on the hour. And if Italians are late, it's not necessarily rude, it's just because they're late. It's just part of their culture. Because in Australia we would say like early is on time and on time is late, whereas in Italy it's definitely not like that. And I guess I had my first encounter with this when I was actually going to apply for my visa and things like that. When I was going through the application process before I even went to Italy, I would spend a lot of time at the Italian consulate to sort out like certain documents and things like that that I needed to do. And I remember I had like a 9 AM appointment or something like that, and I arrived like 15 minutes early, and I was just standing in the waiting room and no one had arrived at work yet, and I was just standing there by myself. And I even had to get some random guy to like help me get up to that level in the elevator because the elevator wouldn't take me up. And even though I was only 10 minutes early, like that's what I would usually do, you know, if I was going to a job interview or something like that, I would always make sure that I'm a little bit early. I'm always punctual and on time, and I've always got a little bit of time to spare just in case anything goes wrong, you know, like in case I'm a little bit late for whatever reason. So I was just allowing a little bit of time. And I remember this guy walking up, he came out of the elevator to where I was standing in the little the corridor area, and he was a guy that worked there, and he was one of the first staff members to walk into the building. And I just remember him looking at me, and it was 10 minutes before they were meant to open, before my appointment was meant to be, and he's like, you know that we don't open for 10 minutes, right? And I was like, yeah, like I'm just here a bit early. And he thought that it was so weird that I was there early and that I was like standing there waiting for my appointment. Like they just find that to be so strange, and it's just not something that's part of their culture. And then when I went to Italy, it was even more reinforced to me. This is how their culture works and runs. And they're just, if you want an Italian to be there at 9 PM, tell them to be there at 8 PM or like 7:30 PM, because especially they are a little bit better with this in the north. They're not as late in the north in general, like generally speaking. But if you go to the south of Italy, like when I went out with my boyfriend's friends, when I went in the south to stay there for a while, we would go out for like dinner or drinks or something, and they would be like, all right, meet at 9 PM, and half of them wouldn't show up until like 10:30 PM. And this is just the norm. This is just the norm for Italians. So top tip, if you go to Italy and you want to organize something with Italians, ask them to be there at least half an hour to an hour before you actually want them there, because a lot of the time they will be late. And yeah, definitely taught me a lot about the way that I should act and my level of punctuality, like kind of reprogramming myself in a way to be more Italian and be more accepting of that kind of way of life. The second thing is that there's an idea in the world that Italians dress really nicely, they're always really well presentable, And you know, especially in Milan, being one of the fashion capitals of the world, everyone's always dressed impeccably, and they all, I guess, take pride in their appearance and take pride in looking a certain way and presenting themselves in a certain way. You've got like your nice leather boots and your black pants and your nice coat and stuff like that in the winter time. And if it's summer, you might be wearing like a skirt and some like pristine white sneakers and a little top. But, and I think I mentioned this in my previous video, about their, like the kind of footwear that they won't wear in summer. You'll never see Italians walking around in like flip-flops or thongs in summer, because it's seen as kind of strange, kind of dirty to be walking around like a normal city with thongs. And this isn't like, I'm not talking about when they go to the beach, because obviously when they go to the beach and stuff, they might be wearing thongs, or they might even like just change into their thongs when they're actually at the beach itself or when they're at the pool itself. They don't like the idea of having like dirty feet or being walking around in a dirty city with like nothing really between you and the ground. So that's funny. That's something to remember as well. Keep in mind if you're there during European summer, if you're in Italy in European summer, that they do find that a little bit strange, people that wear thongs around the city. The next thing that I'm going to talk about, and I guess this kind of is similar in Australia, depending on your friend group obviously, but I noticed in Italy that it's kind of just like normal etiquette to, I guess, allow your friends concessions where possible. And what I mean by this is like, don't be stingy with your friends. Like, you know, if you go out for drinks or something, just pay for the round for your friends, and then it's kind of just assumed that they will like pay for a round later, or pay for petrol if you're driving somewhere, or like pay for dessert or dinner or whatever. They're very, I guess, generous with their money when it comes to their friends, and people that they have a good relationship with. They're very trusting of each other, and they're very, very respectful as well. And obviously this is a two-way street when it comes to allowing concessions to people. They need to be able to trust you. So you'll see like Italians who are quite close with certain people, they'll be quite generous with, you know, their money or their time or whatever. They're not going to be stingy or anything like that. They'll kind of just be like, look, I'll pay for it this time, and then it's kind of just assumed that the other friend or whatever will pay for something next time or make it up in some other way. But they're really, really respectful, and they're really, really good about that kind of thing. I remember when I went to the south of Italy and we were doing like a lot of driving around. Like we went away to Puglia for this holiday in August of last year, and so there was obviously like petrol money always having to be thrown around between the group, and everyone was so good about it that whenever the person that was driving would go to get petrol, everyone would always be like holding out their money ready to pay them. And it was never like a stingy thing. It's like they all knew that with people that they're close with, it's really important to be, not be stingy and always be generous. The next thing, and this is going to be the last thing that I talk about, is that you should never critique like Italian culture. Don't talk down on it, because even though they bash themselves, they bash their country, they bash their culture a lot, just be really careful what you say in certain situations about Italian culture, and especially about things like religion or their food, or things that are really, I guess, close to them, close to their heart, and very inextricably linked to their culture and their customs and things like that. Even though you'll see Italians a lot of the time like criticizing their own culture, criticizing their own country, it's something that's very close to their heart, and something that means a lot to them. So if they hear like a foreigner or something criticizing their culture, or bashing it or something, an element of their culture, they get very, I guess, not happy about it. They get quite offended and quite defensive, which is like totally understandable. I always think about this example when you're mean to your siblings, or you call your siblings something, or something like that, and it's fine if you do it because you're their family. But as soon as someone else is like rude to them or mean to them or is bullying them or something, it's like not okay. It's kind of the same thing, the same concept. So that's all I have for today's video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it. I've been loving filming this series on my channel. Let me know, send me a DM on Instagram if you have any recommendations for future videos, because I'm definitely open to suggestions and your ideas and everything, especially if you are going to Italy, if you are going to be studying Milan. I'd love to get your feedback, so definitely let me know if there's anything that you specifically want to know. I'm happy to make those videos as well. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye guys.